Hello and welcome to another empowering episode of She's All That, Middle East and Africa's Women in Lenovo 3-part podcast series. I'm your host Celeste Gibbens, Marketing Director for Middle East and Africa, and today we've got a very interesting topic. We are shifting gears and focus, and we are talking about male allyship for women in leadership in Lenovo and also in the tech industry as a whole, a topic that is oftentimes neglected. I've got three remarkable gentlemen sitting next to me on the couch today, but before I introduce them, let me say thank you to Lenovo for providing us this platform and this opportunity to have these difficult discussions in an open, candid, and honest way. Now let me introduce you to these three incredible leaders from Lenovo. Ahmed Khan, our HR Director for Middle East, Africa and Turkey. Thibault Dousson, Services and Solutions Group Director for Middle East, Africa and Turkey. Shashank Sharma, our Executive Director for Middle East, Africa and Turkey. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
We are diving in because this is a special month. This month we are celebrating International Women's Day on the 8th of March. It is truly a time where we get to celebrate and recognize all these various roles that women play, not even in the workspace, but in society as a whole. You know, motherhood, personal life, women at work, we get to celebrate this. So, Ahmed, I'm going straight to you. What initiatives do we have in place in Lenovo? What do we do to truly celebrate and participate in International Women's Day?
So, celebrating women for us at Lenovo here in Middle East, Turkey and Africa is a year-long festivity. We have many occasions where we come together to engage, to reflect and to act. International Women's Day specifically is a time and a reminder for us of the importance of equity, both in workplace and in the society. In the past, we've had many events where we come together as a team, we educate men and women, we have roundtables to discuss issues. We've even brought in external change makers to inspire new thinking.
That's incredible, yes.
Right, and for us, those are just some examples of how the focus on women isn't just a one-day thing, it's actually a year-long festivity.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think, you know, I'm such an advocate that every day should be International Women's Day in Lenovo. So Shashank, maybe we can make that a rule. But I love that it's a year-long journey and it's a lifelong journey for a company. And, you know, we've come so far in from generation to generation in fostering diversity and inclusion of women in the workplace. And as you rightly say, it's a year-long journey. But what a special day to kind of almost give us that remembrance of women in the workspace, refresh our memory, refresh our values, reiterate our message again. So this really does give us a good platform for that. Now, obviously today I am joined by all males. The first two episodes were all females. You should be scared about what was said on those. All males today. And so that brings me to my next topic. And as I've rightly said at the beginning, an aspect oftentimes neglected is this thing of male allyship in women in leadership. Shashank, as our Executive Director, you know, can you shed some light and give me your perspective on why is it important to have male allies in nurturing and fostering women in leadership in Lenovo, but in the industry as a whole?
It's allyship for me, in my opinion, is enabling the entry of female leaders, so workers in the institution, and then enabling them to progress with confidence. You know, and because of the historical context, there has been an oversized input of male gender into institutions and organizations, even in the society. So their acceptance of the challenges women have taken to enter into workspace and then increase their roles, that awareness leads to a leader or to any male to understand that they will require a special support than others. in not only entering the workspace, but also enhance their contribution in the workspace over a period of time. And that includes taking leadership steps.
Yes.
They need to be given confidence at regular times. And allyship is basically having that awareness and understanding that you have a role to play in that. That's for me is the allyship.
Shashank, that's significant. I love that. I love that male allyship is about the confidence that we give women, and also men has a role to play in these discussions. I think we would be generations behind on the topic of diversity and inclusion if it wasn't for the fact that men has a role to play in this too, in educating. So I love that. Leadership lessons learned. Now, reluctant to ask you this because I'm sitting in the midst of great leadership, on this couch, and each in your own right has learned valuable leadership roles in managing teams and individuals. But Thibault, working alongside women, managing women in your team, fostering women into leadership, how's this changed the way that you manage? How's this changed your leadership style?
Well, it just comes down to diversity and the richness of diversity. Because if you all look the same and you have exactly the same viewpoint, then you really are going to restrict your ability to think or to come to solutions when it comes to problem solving. And so it becomes fairly boring, right? So you need to basically add more diversity to your team.
So what you mean is women bring a lot of color, right?
Wow, yeah, it's a lot more fun. Let's be honest. So the more diversity that you bring to your team, the more viewpoints you have, your problem solving becomes a little bit easier. There's a lot of benefit as well for employee retention, engagement, and coming from obviously a little bit of background of South Africa where diversity has got a whole lot of different meanings there as well. You realize that the richer your team is, the stronger it is. And so making sure that women access different positions within the organization so that you can access their viewpoints. And in a sense, it's almost like a selfish approach, if you will, because the more diverse you are, the better you're going to be at your job, the stronger you're going to be. And remember as well, we're not selling to one type of person. Yes. We're selling to myriads of different people. And so if you are selling products that are directed to be used by women, if you don't have any women in your team,
what are you doing?
Nothing's really going to happen, right? Yeah. So I think that's the point about it all is trying to make sure that we have that richness in our team so that we can be a lot stronger and a lot more prepared for the job that we have around. And it's a lot nicer as well to have women in the workplace.
I can agree with that. It is a lot nicer to have women in there.
Can't be with him the whole time.
Something that you said resonates really well with me is on diversity not being one-dimensional. Yes. There's so many dimensions to it. It is gender, it is diversity of thought, it is cultural backgrounds, ethnicity, all of that. I think a lot of times our approach to diversity can be one-dimensional, but when you open up and then look at all the dimensions, that's when you're truly inclusive.
I agree with that because I feel like diversity does not only, if you start focusing on diversity within your teams, if you've rightly said, and the multiple layers that creates, diversity doesn't just benefit women in the workplace. Diversity enriches the leadership skills of managers and employees and the staff. But I do think that there's so much beauty and power in what women bring to the workplace. We had somebody yesterday say how women nurtures business. Sure. Yeah. And I love that. And I love the color and the different thinking that women bring to the workplace.
Absolutely, the warmth of it all is what's important.
I love that. Right, we're moving on to a topic that sparks a bit of controversy, right? Finally, we get to the tough questions. Yesterday we spoke about how there's some gender stereotypes and societal expectations placed on women, not necessarily in the workplace, but in society as a whole. When to start your career, when to get married, when to have children, what to wear, what not to wear, who to be, who not to be. Now, we've gotten a lot better at that. But Ahmed, as HR director for this region, we still face gender stereotypes, not necessarily in Lenovo, but in the tech space, in the industry as a whole. how do we go about actively breaking down barriers when it comes to, or breaking down gender stereotypes in the workplace?
Breaking down stereotypes is something that is easier said than done.
Absolutely.
At Lenovo, we start by acknowledging the issue. One such example is of a round table that I talked about earlier. In the past, we had Claire Carter, our marketing leader back then, talk to us about her personal journey, journey of struggle and her way to the top. We also had you, Celeste, talk to us about your story and talk to us about personal branding and the importance of it. What those stories do is make the issues relatable to people. Okay. It serves as a good reminder on the impact that such issues have on people.
Yes.
Right. Shashank, our meta leader, and I, we spend a lot of time on reviewing female ratios in our organization. We spend a lot of time discussing development journeys for our female talent. I know that Shashank himself spends a lot of time with some of the top female leaders in talent in the organization to mentor and coach them. So in a nutshell, I might be overly simplifying the issue, but the way we tackle it is to address the issue for what it is, right? And first call it out and then address the issue for what it is.
Well, I love that, because I think that's what maybe we should do. We should oversimplify it a little bit, in the sense like, let's get practical about breaking down gender stereotypes. And whether that be through sharing stories, because there's so much power in sharing journeys and stories. People relate to this, and people then find the confidence to break down stereotypes in the workplace. And then also, what are we practically doing in recruiting of female talent, retention of female talent? That's really important. So such a powerful answer.
Absolutely. There's another one story that makes me laugh and it makes me sad at the same time.
Oh goodness.
I was interviewing a young mother, and she clearly had spent a lot of time in preparing to justify the maternity gap on her resume, right? And at the end of the interview, she told me that she was shocked that I didn't ask her about the maternity gap. And I explained to her that I had talked to her to understand her knowledge, skills, abilities, and competencies, and that's what was important for the role. Clearly, there were other interviews where she had to explain for which she prepared. At Lenovo, that's what we're about. I think leader-led behaviors of such small things, which shifts the conversation a little bit.
That breaks it down.
Yeah.
And to this point, my personal story is I have, I'm a mama 3, and I, look how fresh I look. And after my twins were born, which, was my last pregnancy, I sat in a room with you before I started joining Lenovo, and I tried to also say, I can do this with the 3 kids, and you said, didn't ask you about that. I don't care about that. That's not why I'm employing you. And so that was such a pivotal, powerful moment. Shashank, you wanted to add on to this conversation.
Yeah. So taking from what Ahmed mentioned just now, the stereotypes are there, and we may not be able to clash with all of them.
Yes.
But as long as we keep spreading the awareness about them regularly through conversations and keep challenging them all the time.
Yes.
And for that, you have to give space for those conversations. Sure. If the conversations happen, people will find a way to challenge their own notions about genders. And that's something which we could do as leaders all the time.
That's really powerful. Now, I want to stay with that a little bit, and I want to stay with you, because one of the things that we have to do in encouraging inclusivity, inspiring inclusivity, is creating open dialogues. Now, this is not as easy. So perhaps on this couch today, it's easy. We can talk about this topic, and we have come a long way. Shashank, how, as the executive director for this region, do you encourage open dialogue about these topics with the employees, but also in your leadership team?
So the good thing is, in Lenovo, there is first of all, there's a tracking which we do at very high levels on the numbers, the percentage of female talent in different levels of leadership, different levels of employment.
Yes.
So that tracking is done, which keeps us honest. Ahmed keeps me honest because he brings the numbers in front of.
It's the numbers.
It's the numbers that, guys, are we doing what we are saying we are doing? So so that leads to acknowledgement of challenges, even using humor. So I have been part of meetings, very senior meetings, where people have highlighted through humor if the gender balance wasn't right.
I love that, actually, bringing humor into it.
Correct. And I have taken a strong cue from that myself and used that to highlight in whichever meetings I have gone, and I have found the gender balance not to be all right, and I pointed out to people. And so that has allowed us to not to keep this discussion as a taboo, but to bring it out and being comfortable discussing it. And I think that's something which I will credit a lot to Lenovo and the HR discourse we have had, which has kept people like me honest on discussing it rather than avoiding it.
That's brilliant, and that's definitely something I'm taking away and jotting down, is how can we make people more confident to talk about this? Perhaps we should bring the humor into it. Perhaps we should bring the relatability and the stories and make it easier for people to talk about it, as opposed to seeing it as a taboo or a strict or a very kind of
well, whatever works, right? Communication is going to be key to break those biases, because you don't even know you got them, right? So there's only through communication and having diversity in your team that you're going to realize that you have actually bias that you didn't even know about, and you need to basically get rid of them.
True.
Definitely, and definitely your roles as male allies also to give women the confidence to speak up. And to have that confidence to say, this is gender stereotyping in the workplace. And I want to talk about something called mentorship. Now, Lenovo I've never seen a company that does so well in terms of mentorship on all levels in the company. Mentoring young up-and-coming employees in the company, also being mentored even as leaders, females, mentoring females. Thibault, you are one of the most sought after mentors in the company. I know that you have mentored males, females. You've been such an integral part of this program within Lenovo. But tell me now, here's a bit of a curveball on this one.
Go for it.
What is the significance of females being mentored by male leaders,
right,
and what effect does that have on their career trajectory?
Well, it's the same what we talked about earlier, in a sense, right? So you want diversity of opinions as well. So if you're gonna go as a woman, you think to yourself, okay, well, there's a leader, Celeste Gibbens, she got to marketing director, I'm gonna have her as a mentor because I want to understand the story and because I can match basically my personality to hers, which is a great thing, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but you need to have a different viewpoints as well.
Yes.
And so having Ahmed or Shashank as a mentor will give you the male viewpoint. So again, for the richness of your view is actually not a bad idea. The good thing as well with male leaders is that you access to the network too, and networking is important, and having that type of network points within the organization is key. So I kind of like, I'm not saying that you know I don't want to push anyone to do whatever they don't want to do, but I guess having a diversity in your mentorship is actually a good idea. For once, I think I had 4 different mentors in the last 4 years, and unfortunately they all be a male.
Yes.
So I need to go and you know, and actively pursue to find a female to try to get a bit of a different viewpoint.
Different perspective.
Having said that, my coaches were female, so at least I've
Okay,
got
so that's
some,
good. But you know, that actually puts a different spin on this question, because I'm asking you the significance of women being mentored by males. How do we encourage male leaders to be mentored by female leaders as well? We've got one of our general managers in South Africa, and he's always spoken about the significance of being interviewed by, you know, the likes of Fiona O'Brien, who's just a powerhouse in our company, and the different perspective that she has brought to his leadership style. So I'm definitely getting myself some mentees very soon. All right, we are nearing the end of our conversation. Sadly, I could sit on this couch with you for 5 more hours, but I fear you've got different things to do. I'm going to ask you a question that is easy to ask to the female panelist, might not be this easy to you, and that is, and you're only allowed to answer it in 1 or 2 short sentences, and this is advice to your younger self. I'm not saying that we're not young anymore, but your younger self. I think topics such as diversity, inclusion, women in leadership, empowerment wasn't as prevalent when we were younger. And so could there have been things that we could have done or said differently, or even just advice to your younger self in the corporate world that people might say? Shashank, let's start with you.
I think if in one line I would say, I was taught and I was aware that the organizations need to be competitive. I should have paid more attention to that organization need to be competitive and inclusive for long-term success. I wish I had known that at that point of time.
I love that. Powerful. Thibault.
Oh, my younger self.
Your younger self.
Well, on my side, it would have been to listen more.
Yes.
That's. I think that's something we share together.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
Share that too.
I think as the younger version of myself, I'll tell, listen more.
Listen more.
Speak less, listen more.
Oof, that's a lesson that we can tell our older selves too, isn't that? Definitely something I am reigniting in my memory. Ahmed, let's end with you.
For me, both for women, both in my personal life and at workplace, I would have engaged in a conversation to understand and listen more, as Thibault said as well, because I think the journey is so difficult. I've always been of the view to encourage people to just keep moving forward.
Yes.
But you've got to process the experience that you're going through as well. So that's where I'd spend a little bit more time with women in my personal life and in our workplace to understand the difficulties of their journey instead of just encouraging them to move forward. Help process it before we move forward. It's important.
I like this thing of listening more and understanding better before taking action. I think those are powerful reflections, and may this be a framework for young employees coming into the tech space and into Lenovo and all across the world, and I hope people use this as a foundation. Thank you so much, all three of you, for joining me on the couch today. It was an incredible session. Like I said, I could have spent a lot more time with you. And to our listeners, again, we have come to the end of our She's All That podcast, Middle East and Africa's Women in Lenovo. It's been absolutely an incredible journey to have you part of this. And I want to encourage you to see diversity not as a buzzword, to see women in the workplace not as buzzwords, but definitely to see it as the cornerstone of a thriving workplace. I'm your host, Celeste Gibbens, wishing you continued success in your journey in breaking barriers for women in the tech space and in Lenovo. Thank you.
Lenovo.